Okay, I have a super hard question for you if you're up for it.
Let's try.
So right now, it's challenging times, right? It's sort of crazy times with politics, with the pandemic, with everything. And I've seen some brands, like a couple of years ago, In Coffee had a catastrophe with a sandwich board they put outside in Rhino, talking about how they're regentrifying this neighborhood that didn't want to be regentrified, and they still have backlash from that. I saw a tattered cover on, they didn't respond. Murder happened. They didn't respond to that, and they actually got boycotted. So, with these crazy times, do we need somebody to be monitoring that? How do we know to react? I mean, it seems terrifying, to be honest with you, as a brand, to make sure that you put the right foot forward, but you don't misstep, misspeak, and be politically incorrect.
Yes. And so you're right. It is a really tough question, but it's one that, look, so here's my thing. Like, I believe that the conversation is happening on social media. I also believe it's happening with brands. So there's this really crazy trend happening right now where the world has changed and people are looking to brands for information. They're looking to brands for political stance. They're looking to brands to how do we handle the pandemic? They're looking to brands to what's your commentary on racial inequality? And so, and this isn't like they're looking to them, putting them on the spot. This is how we get our information. So we're also, we're forming our worldview by how the brands that we interact with are taking stances or not taking stances on these issues. So if you're going to be involved in this, one thing I will say is that you're going to screw up. That's probably a given. Know that, give yourself grace. But I do think that, just like in life, if you are authentic, if you own it, typically the news cycle is so quick that people are quick to forgive. People are quick to forget. I would love to do a little deeper dive on the whole Ink Coffee thing, because you and I know the creative agency behind that. I know the spirit of it wasn't meant to be insensitive, but the fact of the matter was it's incredibly insensitive, and it was a miss. So the fact that they're still getting backlash from that, I would just like to know what was I'd kind of like to do a deep dive on the study, because I'm not that familiar with what really happened thereafter. I remember there's all sorts of protests, but I don't remember Ink's response. But it'd be really cool to think and look back and study how did they handle it, and maybe use that as a case study. Maybe we can do that in a future conversation. But yeah, it's scary out there. I think you need to be authentic. I think you need to do your homework. I think you need to own the fact that you don't know everything as a brand, and come out and say that, and say look, we're doing our best. We might make a mistake. These are the things we're doing. I think people have this really interesting time, right? Time is this kind of bizarre construct. Thank you, Christopher Nolan. And people will hold companies guilty for things they did 50 years ago. And I don't want to make any excuses for them. But it was a different time. People said different things, and we're always moving in time. So understand that, and understand that all you can really ask from a brand or a business is how they're showing up today. Also remember that they have their own struggles. Ink is probably just trying to stay. And by the way, everybody, I don't work with Ink. I don't really know them, but they're probably trying to stay in business. They're just trying to survive a pandemic. They're just trying to do different things. They were trying to be the fun, cool, hip brand that was just a little bit different, and they hit a joke that didn't land. And sometimes, if you're Louis C.K. or I'm trying to think of someone else, Kramer from Seinfeld, and you hit a racial joke that doesn't land,
it's game over.
Yeah, you're not coming back, and that's just kind of the way it is. And you can do different things, but again, I don't know how their business is doing, but from a branding standpoint, if it was really in trouble, I'd suggest rebranding. That might be a reason to change your name. That might be a reason to actually rebrand if you just couldn't escape that cloud.
I think, and again, knowing the agency and knowing how exceptional they are, and that it was just a miss, I think possibly what Ink could have done is just own it instead of, I think they tried to do this and say, we're not responsible. And one of the things that I have learned is I'm responsible for everything at my company. Even if it's a minion that does it 3 levels down, that minion worked for me. I'm responsible for that. So that was, I threw you a curveball, and an incredibly hard curveball. And thank you very much, Marc. That was insightful. And, I'm trying to balance of, do you jump in the game? Back in the old days, I think I still call Chick-fil-A hate chicken because of the founder's view on LGBTQ. I think of, Tommy Hilfiger or Lululemon and the missteps that those founders made that were like, whoa, you really stepped out of line, versus, hey, this is our authentic view on the world and how we stand by the change that we see needing to happen. So thank you, my friend.
Yeah, no, and I'm trying to think of it. I'm blanking right now, but if you were to Google today, I think it's called the Richards Group. There's this, and I didn't really know them, but it's a really famous agency out of, I think, Dallas. And the Richards Group, they do like Motel 6, and they were doing Home Depot and some of these really huge brands. And the owner, and this is just real time, this has happened in the last 10 days, the owner had said some things that were, they're not going to like this ad because it's ... and, racially insensitive. And like the backlash was immediate. Within 2 to 3 days, he was resigning. Those big brands were leaving the agency. And so in today's day and age, I mean, Inc. It's funny because Inc., not funny, but Inc. was really early on this one, I think if they would have done that today, it would have been really game over. It would have been shut down the business over, like there is just no room for that. And I think that's great. I think that the world is waking up. I think that people are trying to enact change and trying to move the world to a better place. And just be aware. It's the economic and cultural climate we're living in. And going forward, you can't be real cavalier with that type of messaging. But I also think that this is a much bigger conversation about diversity and equity and inclusion. And we're two white dudes and we run in super white dude circles. And, at that agency, there probably was absolutely zero diversity. And, had there been some diversity, someone probably would have looked at that before it went out the door and said, wait a second, because I think that it was just there's no excuses, but I think it just was they didn't even see it. They didn't even know that it was insensitive. And that's just an example of the systemic racism we have, that there's a lot of things that we don't even know are racist and we just say them or do them or participate in them. And it's not from a racist place in our heart, but it certainly is. And it's perceived that way by other communities and other cultures. And so, had there been some diversity, and again, that's a much bigger conversation, but I think someone would have been like, whoa, should we be sending that out? And it would have been avoided.
Yeah. I had an orthodontist, this is probably 10 years ago, that wanted to do an ad. He wanted us to design an ad with obviously a LGBTQ person and then sort of like a split face and then them being straight on the other side. And we can straighten anything. And I was like, nope, not going to do that. You can go somewhere else. I'm sorry, but you have no clue how offensive that is. And there is no effing way my agency would produce something like that. And as a friend, please don't do that, because that's going to be the end of your company. And maybe you should actually do some sensitivity awareness work on yourself. So, all right,
it's going to take more. It's going to take more agency owners and more creatives and more people in business just having that hard conversation. Also being self-aware, and if you don't have diversity, maybe just saying trying to put that hat on and just saying hey, how might this be seen? And then and then at the end of the day, we do our best.